This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, Aaron and Joey talk about Cultural Beige.
Woo!
Honey bear. This is what a Joey sounds like.
Wow. We are the Aarons that rule the world. This is what an Aaron sounds like, and I'm presaging the episode, so not very good.
And this week, our executive producer and pop punk band member, Jess Vander, is on vacation. The band is on tour.
We're really happy for her, but I'm really sad for me. I miss Jack.
Oh my God.
It did sort of go a little, it didn't mean to go big mouth and it slipped into it. Bon voyage. Just have a great vacation. Indeed.
Aaron, I heard you went to a place and did a thing and then heard and thought and saw things.
This is true. And this is what has brought me to y'all today. I went to the Hollywood Bowl this weekend and saw Empire
Did you get
of
a
the
strike?
Sun. Did I get a what?
A strike?
I did not get a strike. No, I did not. Not the Hollywood Bowl bowling alley, the Hollywood Bowl amphitheater. I'm saying this more so for the those not in the know. But no, so a friend invited me. I'm not an Empire of the Sun fan. They're a band. I know 2 of their songs. I know Walking on a Dream. I know We Are the People. Like, I've heard them before. I'm shocked that I can even
Walking
name
on
them.
a Dream.
Thank you. Exactly. And that's what it all sounded like. So we get to the show, and the Hollywood Bowl is an amazing venue, right? So it's in Hollywood in LA. It's the backdrop of the mountains. The Santa Monica Mountains are right behind. I think it's the Santa Monica Mountains. Somebody will tell me if I'm wrong. Please, in the notes.
Topanga.
So it's beautiful. It's beautiful behind it, and it's actually my favorite concert venue that I've ever been to. I really love seeing anything there. And so, because I'm not a fan, because I'm really enjoying the venue, and because I live in Los Angeles, I may have, added some herbal supplements to my journey to go see Empire of the Sun. I think like I immediately became like a cultural anthropologist at a concert. Like I didn't see it happen while I was dancing, but like it happened. And it was such an interesting spectacle. Like, the music, to me, not being really connected to any of the content, it all sounded like it came from the same producer. It all sounded the same. The visuals looked like they were, I don't know, like, just sort of like, everything visually, sonically, and even like vibally, for lack of a better term, all felt like it was sitting in this like liminal space. And of course I had my like eureka moment where it was like, I wonder if this band was invented by Instagram and Spotify, basically. Or maybe, because I'm gonna get flamed so bad for saying that, maybe it's just that like this is sort of what happens when you have the perfect medium, not too hot, not too cold. Like, it's the Goldilocks sound and visual, and yet people were losing their shit. I saw almost as much excitement for this as, well, not Beyonce, but like other artists. So anyway,
to even suggest that degree of excitement,
saying a lot, right? And so my question for you is, what do we do with Cultural Beige? By the way, Empire of the Sun fans, I'm really gonna backpedal a little bit. Please don't come and hate me, please.
Do they exist? First of all, I knew when you said Empire of the Sun, I was like, oh, right. Like, we are always going for the thrill of it. Like, I was like, right. I know that one song. But you're like, I went to a show and I was like, in the year of our Lord 2024, they were having a concert, like surprised, clearly.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
but I mean, that first song came out in like 2012? Like, when did that
Yeah.
album? 2008. 2008, that
Wow.
album came out. So I was shocked. So I pulled up Spotify while we were talking. Their top 5 songs have over 3 billion streams. I was like, first of all, and then
Yeah.
also, second of all, what is happening? But it is like, my immediate reaction was like, this is a product of like, we've spoken recently about how like YouTube creators sometimes talk about how they're like, the algorithm sort of like directs them with like the sort of subtle hand of the algorithm of like, this got responses, I'll do more like that, and all of a sudden they're like creating things. They're like, how did I get here? Like, what it's like that car ride where you get home and you're like, did I run red lights? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm home. But that cultural beige thing is really interesting because right, like, where is Empire of the Sun from? If you told me they were Danish, I'd be like, okay. If you told me they were from Kansas, I'd be like, all right, yeah, sure. They were from an international school in Indonesia, like, all right, great. Like, I have no connection to like space, time, geography, anything. It is just like an algorithm gave birth to like that. Literally, even the voice, like the voice feels like it almost has no opinion. And I don't even think that's inherently like a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, what are you giving?
Yeah. I am so glad that you just said that, because I think that's the thing that I was so shocked by. Was my experience with this band's music is like toe tappable background music, basically. Like, you know, and it's a little bit Muzak-y to me. And I don't say that in a denigrating way. I think when you said like, it's just inoffensive, like it's really hard not to be like, yeah, cool, that song's kind of cool. Like, great. And then the distance between that and these fans that are in the crowd, these bros, these like bros, they're like, yeah, like just like, they like, this guy 4 seats over is just like, walking on a dream, play walking on a dream, like over. Yeah, sorry, I really put my throat through that. These dudes they might as well have been at like a hockey game. Like, they were so riled up. And I think that like, as soon as you said that they were like, that Walking on a Dream came out in 2008, and then here we are in 2024 and they're still around. I think, first of all, go to the show, spend money on their art. If I'm going to have a point of view on their art, like, please go support them. Second, like, it's very, so what I do gather is that, first of all, sonically everything sounded the same. I mentioned that. You actually mentioned the thing that jumped out to me the most, which is that like the styling of the show and the costuming, it was like definitely Japanese inspired, which makes sense given the name of the band being Empire of the Sun. And I believe that this is like the actual personal heritage of one, if not both of the members of the band. So like, that's also not surprising. But it's been like put through an interesting, like almost like techno future present, like filter. And filter I'm using very specifically because everything has this brightness and this saturated neon sort of thing that feels very, very like electric Instagram 2008 like kind of visual style. And then lastly, there's this vibe, this cultural thing with the band where they're like, you know, people were showing up to the show with like headdresses on and of all different types of cultures and backgrounds, and like lots of jewels and like really big heavy statement necklaces, and like there was a little bit of queerness but a lot of broness, and there's this like ether of like pseudo spirituality or like tangential spirituality that was going through even the set design. And like, I say all of this because that's this cultural beige thing that I'm talking about, and that I think has been influenced just by entertainment algorithms, is also something that has to do with us being able to go to places more than we've ever been able to before, and to be able to remix different things that we've seen from other cultures more than ever before. But something that sound engineer and the subtle hand of my algorithm, Alex Contel, mentioned before we got onto the podcast too, is that like all of this sort of started under this major personalization revolution. We all thought like, I get to have everything that I want tailored to me, all my tastes, all my likes. This is amazing that my favorite stuff can find me. And then when all of those algorithms start getting trained en masse, you end up with cultural beige. You end up with, first of all, things sounding the same, people leaning into the algorithm to develop art that they want to reach the broadest number of people. But then also you get the weirdest experience when you're out in public and you've only listened to a band in your headphones, and then you walk into a concert venue and you're like, oh, I am nothing like any of these people. Like I liked this sound, this band, this whatever. It's the Sabrina Carpenter, it's the espresso moment all over again. It's like, oh, it's so special to me. I love this. And then you're like, oh, these are all the people that like espresso? Because it looks like maybe everyone, but a very specific everyone even. So I don't know. Culture, I really like the term cultural beige because I do think that there's also cultural gray and cultural taupe. Like, it's not the same
Beige
for
is
everyone.
Warm. It's warm. It
Yes.
matches many things. Like, it can fit into many rooms and many spaces. Right? Like yeah. There's
it's very
something
big.
different.
Yeah. It's very big to like this notion of just general homogenization. This pops up, and I think Joey, we've talked about this. I think is like the sort of like international, like large international Western city style, like that.
Yeah.
There is just a way that sometimes you can't tell if a photo was taken in the East Village or Amsterdam or in Denmark or LA, and it's
fashion girlies with their sambas.
Yes, it's so quick how these things end up being adopted in these places, but then also just lose any sense of space or time or place. I don't like it.
I mean, I think like the part of it is right, like personalization via algorithm that is closed is rarely actually personalization, right? I'm even thinking about like some of the large language models that would allow you to like play with temperature, right? Where like how creative it is versus how analytical and whatever. And you start to get like different outputs. Like Spotify doesn't allow you to mess with the temperature of your Discover Weekly, for example, or like the temperature of like a algorithmic radio station or, you know, suggested for you or whatever. And like often I'm like, I want a different temperature in this, like Discover Weekly. Like somehow my daughter like told Google to play, you know, a Moana song, and now I'm getting like musical theater in my Discover Weekly, and I'm like I used to look forward to this so much, and now it's gone. But like that, you know, there's a dynamic. You brought up like pay for this artist, go see a show, whatever. There's a dynamic born out of local. I'm going to say something maybe controversial. I'm curious what your opinion is. I think local culture is born out of local commerce. Local commerce has been largely impeded, and so local culture has been impeded. The reason I say that is because I think local culture is a product of networks, and where commerce happens, where you're exchanging goods, services, time, get to know each other, it starts to build a unique flavor of that network. But where you have many things going, nationalization or globalization, think news, think media, think music, think all of those things, you have reduced quality of local networks. So the music, art, culture that gets put out, even if you were born in whatever, Perth, Australia, or Hong Kong, or Medellin, or New York City, wherever, because everything is now sort of like monocultural via algorithms, the flavors that are emerging when you decide to create art or media becomes more difficult to create something that has like a uniquely local flavor because local networks are weaker than historically they've been.
I think I agree with it. I think that the only quibble, because why not quibble, is that, is that I don't know that it's. I may be thinking of it more so as local culture is increasingly shaped by international culture, and I mean international different than global. Like I mean this sort of like cross, like there's a commerce aspect to it for sure, even internationally, where we're talking about like different countries that like borrow art, that borrow different sensibilities when it comes to art, borrow cultural sensibilities when it comes to all aspects of how they express themselves and how they operate with each other, but then also that gets distributed so fast that like local doesn't look like local anymore, and which is I think completely in line.
Yeah, maybe it's the same. Yeah, it might be the same thing, right?
Yeah, because like I remember 10-15 years ago, in marketing, there was always a conversation about like, well, if you're gonna do research for a certain brand, you definitely want to think about leading edge cities, mid-tier cities, and then if you have the time or it's really important for the type of category that you're in, super mainstream generic cities. Because culture does flow out of those sort of leading edge cities faster and then waterfalls out or radiates out is probably a better way to say it. What I've realized more and more is that like, unless you're working on something that actually does lean into or require a sort of reaction to those sort of local cultural sensitivities, it doesn't, in many cases, it doesn't even matter what country you're doing the research in. If you're talking about certain brands of a certain size, like you need a big international market and a more mainstream market. And what mainstream looks like, again, depending on the media or the category that you're in and whatnot, you can get all out of there. And it's because it's gotten more samey. It's gotten more, I think a good example is Sacramento. I love Sacramento, California. I do. I was just there last weekend. And there's some things when you go into like the cool part of town in Sacramento that look exactly like the cool part of town in Cincinnati, that look exactly like the cool part of town in Pittsburgh. Like all places that I was at this year, all places I was there. I was in Vancouver, which was different and much more leading edge and different and more like experimental. But like, it's not that they're broken from the algorithm. It's that anyone can figure out what the symbols and signals are because we have more access to what quote unquote works. And I think that we end up losing not just a sense of place, but a sense of shared like culture and community. And that's why I think it's really interesting to watch like a lot of Midwestern cities in particular, like own their picadillos, their weirdnesses, because that's the only thing that feels like, oh yeah, you're from that place, as opposed to another small town, mid-tier, mid-sized city somewhere else in the States.
Yeah. I mean, I think like some of your flavors are going to come from that like terroir, for lack of a better term, right? Like Pittsburgh is hilly. And so the structure and ways in which it's organized will be impacted by its hilliness, or Vancouver is rainy, right? It's in a temperate rainforest, like one of the only. So that has like an impact in the things people do and whatever. The other part of it, right? Like the terroir, for lack of a better term, is it won't change, right? You have your geography and your climate and all of those things. The thing that can change is how locally based versus how globally. Like your point is like well taken too, right? Like there was an article at some point written about how like all cool coffee shops are the same now because like everywhere internationally, because it's like, this is what a cool coffee shop looks like. I saw it on Instagram, and like everyone is like, this is how you do your menu board and whatever. And if you're being influenced out versus influenced like more locally based on how connected you are to other people and like what are the jokes and things, you know, like think about like stand-up comedy. Right? Like historically you would have flavors, like the Catskills comedy, right, was like a specific flavor. Like if you went through that area, you knew like how to deliver to a particular type of crowd that would then, you were sharpening your style based on that audience. But like now, you know, without being an expert in sort of stand-up comedy, like a lot of it is being honed via podcasts or YouTube or things like that, or you know, TikTok, Instagram, other places, but is not, you're not, the wet knife to your style is not a community or location or culture. It is distributed and you know, if not globally, like regional, national, whatever. And so when you're developing your influences, when you're developing your taste, when you're developing your craft to put it out, like what is sharpening that is going to like inform, if all creators of like stand-up comedy or film or music or whatever, if you're all getting the same shared influences, then naturally like the variance is going to reduce in terms of what's put out.
Yeah, I mean, also I think whetstone versus wet knife, but I really want a wet knife as well. I think I could anyway, but no, what I love about that is that it is literally homogenization. Like not literally, I'm messing it all up. The metaphor you used with the whetstone and the knife, and like what is going to actually hone your skill. When you have more things that you're buffeting against, it's going to cause the law of averages to happen. Like your blade is going to take on the shape of all the little atoms that are flying at it, you know, and the angle that it's being ground at. This metaphor is tortured. But I think
no, I get what you're saying. Like if the whetstone is 50 million people versus like 10,000, it's gonna impact it. Yeah,
it's gonna impact it. It's gonna look different, and it's gonna take on the shape of whatever's in the middle. And I think like one of the big things is that the internet made us entrepreneurs. So now, you know, it used to be that consumers were very concerned, or there was a dominant conversation that was around like, I am not a product, so stop trying to do so. And nowadays you get people running around saying, so what's your brand? What's my brand? Like, you know, to build this up and to like seize all this money that's in the wild, wild west of just the world, right? But if the internet made us entrepreneurs, and like the honing of our craft then comes at just like the legion who is on the internet responding to what we're doing, and that impulse to commerce is asking us to scale, then you end up with cultural beige. You end up with something that is going to be appealing to the most possible people, that's going to be the most acceptable, and that's going to be the least offensive. And I think that like the like speedy race to the middle that comes with that, and then the like the giant stadium full of adoring fans that comes with doing that well, is like, that's a pretty strong it's very easy for me to understand why people end up in that place. And I love seeing, this comes up a lot in terms of like the next generation of creative thinkers and creativity, and like the notion that with Gen AI and with a lot of the LLMs that are out there, like it's not going to replace our ability to be creative. But when it comes to, again, getting this sort of macro feedback, this meta feedback that simplifies everything, then our human creativity becomes even more surprising. Like, it requires us to be more lateral, more abstract, and more risky in order to create things that no one's ever seen before that actually will move us forward. And I think that there's going to be there's always a place for people to make lots of money in doing the generic and the accessible. I'm just really excited to see more outliers. I'm excited to see what outliers can do in this next generation of creators.
Yeah. I mean, I think to start to bring it close to a wrap, that idea of the outliers is you do see interesting things pop up when someone builds like a small but strong audience. But then what also happens is, sorry, hold on. The heat is turning on. Those people can start to pop into that like big audience space. And those are often the people where there's like some type of controversy in one fashion or another, where like some forces are pulling them up into the big space and other people are like, no, we don't want that here. And so like, because they are, some stand up who has like a really loyal crowd, and then all of a sudden it like gets a special somewhere and everyone, like half the people love them, half the people hate them. Like, you do have to be in that place of like, I don't know, Charli XCX's album is like fine, like but is it like the complex statement on art and whatever? It's just like, no, it just bops, like whatever, like
this is tangential, but this is all just one big tangent. That's what our podcast is. I've been spending a lot of time watching YouTube videos that take pop songs and take you through the Pro Tools tracks or like the masters and all the stems of the actual song, and then reconstruct it so you can hear all the background vocals and all the different layers of pieces that have been pulled together to create the sound we know. And I listened to Janet Jackson's If, and then I listened to Britney Spears' Break the Ice, and those two videos just back to back. And like, when you're looking at what Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were doing with If, and I think about like how much they had to think through how all these sounds might fit together and what they wanted to capture to then create the song. And then you listen to all the pieces of Break the Ice, you can just hear this which is not Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, let me just be very, very clear. With Break the Ice is Danger, and you hear just like the simplification, the I wouldn't call it a lack of creativity because I love both songs. I like deeply love both songs, but it is without a doubt simpler, quicker to get to, less complex, like just simpler. There's a different amount of ingenuity that needed to go with the creativity. And I think that if we can make sure that we preserve our sense of ingenuity, we're going to be fine. But if we don't, that's where I think that we start to just get boring.
Yeah. Sorry, you just like do you remember Froggy Fresh / Krispy Kreme? He was on like Tosh.0 with like the baddest. It was like it was almost like a performance art of like a rapper. He was like a teenager. It was like him and Moneymaker Mike like doing so he was just making these like rap songs that were silly when he was a teenager, and they were like sort of performance art, like he made himself seem like very like simple and like earnest, but it was weird. Funny but weird. He at some point started trying to make like serious music, like real art. He's like plays multiple instruments and wanted to like really pursue that. And my brother sent me a video of his recently. I was just looking at his Instagram, and he had this like 12-minute video of like people are like telling me I should make real art, I should make real music. He's like, I tried so hard to make art and real music, and I was not going to be able to make my mortgage payment. And I decided I would commission songs, and all these people started sending me money to commission these like silly, weird songs, and I'm doing it, and I can like pay for my family and whatever. He's like, you're telling me to make real art? He's like, put up $100,000 for me to make a real album. I don't even know if you'll like it. He's like, I'm a meme and I'm okay with that because you guys like me better when I'm a meme. Even if you think I'm talented and I put out a real album, like I'm not going to make money off of that. He's like, my most successful song I've ever done, I've made like $35,000 off of. And like, what, like, this isn't here. He's like, I'm a meme. Then the reason I bring that up is because like, that's kind of what we're asking for. Like Brat was a meme, right? Like That's So Julia, like it was a meme. And maybe Empire of the Sun is just a meme too. Like, I don't know, you know, like, is that actually what we want? Maybe.
Maybe. Can I take a stab at the wrap up corner?
Yes, please.
Because I'm literally just going to state what you just said because I feel like that's it. Maybe we're just a meme. Maybe that's where we're at. We should think about whether or not we want to be. That's how I wrapped it up. Is that fair? Is that
That's it. And if we want to be, go see Empire of the Sun and walk on a dream.
Walk on a dream. It's a good time. Yeah.
Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by Nothing Because I'm Out of Ideas. Happy Monday.
As always, we'd like to thank our executive producer and the baddest of them all, Jess Vander.
We also want to thank, and I am going to repeat it, the subtle hand of the algorithm, Alex Contel, who's also our sound engineer.
We'd like to thank our programming coordinator and moneymaker, Mike, Les Jacobs.
We also want to thank the dynamic duo, because again, I told you I was out of ideas, of all the production help that we get from Zara Gilbert and Nora Mestrich as well.
And as always, thanks, Ellen.
Thank you.
Special thanks.
Oh, wait, before the special thanks, also want to thank Chrissy Jensen and Amy Waters as well for helping us on the production tip. So not forgetting all that. Special thanks. The Hollywood Bowl. That was easy. What about you?
Special thanks to Tyler Cassidy, a.k.a. Froggy Fresh, a.k.a. Krispy Kreme. I don't know why, man. I put in the hot takes earlier this week. Like, I think it is performance art. Like, every time I see what he does, it's so weird but it like makes me laugh every time. He's writing like commission songs where someone like sends him $500 to make a song like making fun of someone in their life that they don't like, and I'm like, why do I find this so funny?
It's awesome. I mean, you've inspired me with that to have another special thanks, which is Ryan Tedder from One Republic. I think he's the lead singer, and Timbaland, because I love this. Ryan Tedder was really worried when One Republic recorded Apologize, or they did the remix to Apologize with Timbaland, because it sounds nothing like all of their other music. And so we had a really rough time when it blew up. But Timbaland, because like then they would go in and play anything else, people would be like, I don't even know what that music is. It's just very different from this song that has the and that was the
I know you nailed it.
Thank you. But the coolest thing about Timbaland is that he said, you wrote the song, like, yeah, it blew up. I don't want any royalties from it. You take them all. Like, take them and run with them. And Ryan Tedder has been forever grateful for Timbaland for that. And also it allowed him to make sure that he still got to write. He's written so many not surprise hits, but hits for other artists because he's a strong songwriter and because people didn't really want. Yeah. So good job, Ryan Tedder, at taking your creativity. Good job, Timbaland, for fueling a creative who deserved it with just one of your many mega hits. It's great stuff. It's a special
Me with no Timbalands, like Puff with no Mace.
Man, well recalled and put back into the world. Although I'd rather talk to Mace than Puff these days, even though Mace is also just kind of in his. If Puff went off the deep end, Mace just went off the shallow end. I'll put it that way. That feels what's right. Yeah.
I mean, him and Cameron's sports show. Every time I see a clip of it, is funny. I've never watched a full episode, but the
sportsiverse that I will not be.
That's not
spending much time in
the sportsiverse. There are a few corners that are your corner.
There are a few corners that are my corner. Agreed. With
right.
that,
love you, mean it. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know if you're going to be able to cut that out.
I couldn't hear it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was like banging, like pong, pong.